The air in the Gilded Fox Hotel is so thick you could cut it with a steak knife. It's Chicago in winter, meaning the wind outside is trying to murder the bricks, but in here, in the grand ballroom, it's a hothouse of perfume, roasting meat and money, old money. My name is Elena Russo. I'm 29 years old, and for the last 4 years, my job has been to walk through this jungle carrying a silver tray. Smiling, my smile is my armor. It's my invisibility cloak. At the Gilded Fox, especially on gala nights like this one, some real estate developer's fundraiser. You're not a person. You're a function. A hand that refills. A shadow that clears. And I'm good at it. I'm known for being the calm one. The one who never frowns. I pause in the service corridor, shifting the weight of the tray. The recycled air smells like floor wax. My feet ache. A dull throb that's become a familiar friend. Heels are killing you, aren't they, Chica? Maria, another server, leans against the wall, grabbing a sip of water. I nod, rolling my shoulders. Just a few more hours. She taps the simple, slightly worn silver band on my left hand. Your husband. He works nights too. Right, must be hard. What did you say he does? He's a doctor. I run my thumb over the ring. It's always warm. Something like that, I say. The familiar half-truth sliding out easily. He's in medical. It's not really a lie. My Mateo, he did have his EMT certification years ago. Back when we first met, he still knows how to stop bleeding. He just works in a different kind of emergency service now. When I first met him, I asked what he did, and he said infrastructure. I thought, like roads, bridges. I learned later he is infrastructure. He's the concrete before it's poured. He's the rebar sitting on the docks. He's the unions that decide who works when... These men in the ballroom tonight, they build the shiny glass towers. But Mateo owns the ground underneath. He's the underground infrastructure king, as one nervous contractor called him once. He's the foundation. But to me, he's just Mateo, the man who texts me to make sure I've eaten, the man whose hands, rough as they are impossibly gentle, the man I lie to, just a little, to keep our life normal. I push back into the ballroom. The noise level has risen. The main event, the Caldwell table, is holding court. Table 7, VIP. I know them by sight. Everyone does. Charles Caldwell, the father, maybe 58, silver hair. Looks like a senator. He builds skylines and golf courses. He looks through people like me. Then there's the son. Brandon, maybe 27. He's got that look, that expensive, careless. My father owns the city look. He's loud. And he has his phone out. The screen glaring as he films himself. Live streaming his own importance, his friends, a mix of slick-haired guys and women in dresses that cost more than my car, are all laughing too loud. I'm assigned their section. I approach, my smile fixed, my tray steady. More water, sir, can I get you anything? Brandon doesn't look up from his phone. Yeah, a 30-year single malt, and don't take 30 years, sweetheart. His friends snicker, I just nod. Right away, sir. I retrieve the drink from the bar. It's the good stuff. The bottle alone costs more than my monthly rent. I carry the glass, just the one on a small tray. When I get back, Brandon is in the middle of a story, his phone pointed at his friends. I wait for a pause. Your whiskey, sir. He stops. He turns. He looks at the glass, then at me. His eyes are bright and mean. This, he says, his voice carrying, took, 10 minutes for one drink. I order a 30-year scotch. I expect it 30 years ago. The phone camera swings to me. I feel the digital eye on me, broadcasting my face to who knows. 1,000 strangers. I keep the smile plastered on. My apologies for the wait, sir. This is the problem, he announces to his live stream. Service is just terrible. He picks up the glass, and then, in one casual, dismissive motion, he flicks his wrist. It's not hot, but it feels like it. The icy cold liquid hits my hair, my face, my shoulder. It splashes down the front of my black uniform vest, soaking the white shirt underneath. The smell of peat and strong alcohol burns my nose. The ballroom goes silent for one agonizing second. Then the Caldwell table erupts. Laughter, high-pitched whoops. Brandon is laughing the hardest, his phone held high, making sure his audience sees me, dripping, humiliated. I just stand there. I am frozen. I am stone. If I move, I'll shatter. Mr. Davies, the night manager, practically runs to the table. He doesn't look at me. He puts a placating, horrified hand on Brandon's shoulder. Mr. Caldwell, my apologies for the disturbance. A fresh one. On the house. Immediately. He gestures, and Maria appears, her face pale. She gently takes the tray from my shaking hand. Elena, Mr. Davies says, his voice tight, his back still to me. Go clean up. Now. He says it like I spilled it, like I am the mess that needs to be removed from sight. I turn. I walk. I don't run. My shoes squeak on the marble. I can feel every eye in the room on my back, on my dripping hair. I smell like a bar floor. As I pass the wide doors to the service kitchen, I catch the eye of Marco Reyes. He's a prep cook, just a kid. Really, always has his camera, dreaming of being a photographer. He's standing by the hot lamps, his own phone in his hand, held low. He wasn't just watching, he was filming. His face is white. He looks sick. I turn away and push through the door to the staff hallway. The locker room is empty. I fumble with the key, my hands slick. The lock finally clicks. I lean my forehead against the cold, gray metal of my locker. I'm not shaking anymore. I'm vibrating. I look in the small, cracked mirror. My hair is matted to my cheek. My mascara, which I never wear much of, is running. The white shirt is stained light brown. The smell. That's the worst part. The smell of rich kids' spite. I start to wipe my face with a rough paper towel, and that's when my apron pocket buzzes. My heart stops. It's not a buzz. It's a seismic event. I pull out the phone. One name on the screen. Mateo. He doesn't call. He never calls when I'm working. It's a text. Just 2 words. You okay? I stare at it. How does he know? He always knows. He has sensors in this city I can't even understand. A vibration. He feels it when the ground is unsteady. He must have felt me tremble, all the way across the river. My thumbs hover over the screen. I want to tell him, God, I want to type no. A monster named Brandon Caldwell poured whiskey on me for sport, and they filmed it. And the manager blamed me. But I can't. If I tell him, he will fix it. And Mateo's version of fixing isn't quiet. It's not a lawsuit. It's thorough. It's permanent. It's the end of this normal life I've fought so hard to build with him. He promised me normal. He promised me peace. This is the price. My hands are steady now. I type. Fine. Just a busy night. Spilled some wine on myself. Clumsy me. All good? I hit send. I wait for the 3 little dots. They don't appear. He's not typing. He's just reading it. He knows I'm lying. But he won't push. Not tonight. I turn off the ringer, slide the phone into my locker, and finally let the tears fall. I scrub my face. Scrubbing the smell of entitlement and expensive whiskey off my skin. I change into my street clothes. 20 minutes pass. I feel hollowed out. I just want to go home. I grab my phone, ready to leave. There's a new notification. Maria forwarded me a link from one of those city gossip blogs. My stomach twists. It's a statement from the Caldwell Corporation posted only 15 minutes ago. We regret the disturbance at tonight's gala, which was handled swiftly by hotel staff. Unfortunately, an employee exhibited unprofessional behavior. I read it again. Unprofessional behavior. My behavior. And then, the line that stops my breath. Sources confirm the employee has been previously disciplined by the hotel for argumentative behavior with guests. A lie. A complete, fabricated, vicious lie. They didn't just humiliate me, they were trying to erase me, to build a new story, a new foundation, where I was the problem. They weren't just protecting their son, they were cementing my guilt. I stand there in the buzzing silence of the locker room. I think of Marco, his camera, I think of Mateo's text. I pull up my message to my husband. Fine, just a busy night. My thumb hovers over the delete button. I can't be the one to light the fuse. I am protecting him as much as I'm protecting this life. I put the phone back in my pocket. I will go home. I will shower for an hour. I will wash the smell out. I will kiss him. Tell him I'm tired and I will sleep. This will pass. It has to. I walk out into the freezing Chicago night, the lie burning hotter than the whiskey ever did. I didn't sleep. Sleep is a luxury you can't afford when the foundation feels a tremor, and I felt it. Right around 10:15 last night, a vibration in the city's concrete skeleton that was all wrong. It was centered on the gilded fox. It was centered on Elena. Her text message was a lie. Spilled some wine, clumsy me. Elena is never clumsy, and Elena doesn't lie to me, not unless she's trying to protect me from myself. Which means someone hurt her. By the time she got home, smelling faintly of alcohol, she didn't drink. Her eyes puffy, but her smile fixed. I already knew. The call came at 10:16, just 2 words from a retired judge I've helped with his foundation's logistics for a decade. All he said was, Mateo Caldwell. I kissed her. I told her I had an early inspection. I let her believe her lie, because her believing it was the only way she'd get any rest. Dawn doesn't so much rise in this part of Chicago as it leaks. Gray light filters through the high, dusty windows of the Santoro Infrastructure Warehouse. From the outside, it looks like any other depot on the river. Piles of aggregate, stacks of rebar, a fleet of concrete mixers and sanitation trucks bearing our name. We are, officially, in the business of concrete, asphalt, waste removal, and site cleanup. The truth is, we're in the business of permission. Nothing in this city gets built, no glass tower, no stadium, no 6-lane bridge without the things I control. The concrete is the least of it. I control the unions that pour it. I control the docks that receive the steel. I control the inspectors who certify the rebar, the permits that allow for nighttime pouring, and the trucks that haul the waste away. These developers, they build the skin. I own the bones. The war room is a mezzanine office above the main floor, smelling of stale coffee and industrial ozone. My team is already here. They've been here since midnight. They know the tremor. Luca DeLuca, my right hand, my oldest friend, stands by the whiteboard. He doesn't look like a threat. He looks like a tired accountant. That's his strength. Sophia Fixer Marino, our legal counsel, is on the phone with one of her old colleagues at City Hall, her voice a low, persuasive murmur. Noah Green, finance, has 3 different spreadsheets open, tracing money through shell core so fast his fingers blur. And Tess Park, our OSINT specialist, is mainlining data, her screen a spider web of connections, social media feeds, and site schematics. On the whiteboard, in the center, is a photo of the Caldwell table from last night. Tess pulled it from hotel security 5 minutes after the judge's call. Brandon, mouth open, laughing, Charles, smiling indulgently, the legal team, looking complicit, and a phone, held high, live streaming. Tess, I say, my voice quiet. The room settles. She points to the board, the target Caldwell Urban Development, Charles as the head, Brandon as the liability. They have 4 major projects in active development: the Lakeview Tower, the West Loop Complex, the new stadium overpass, and the South Shore reclamation. Noah leans forward. The problem isn't the projects. The problem is the financing. They're leveraged to the hilt. Charles is old school. He builds fast, pays on terms, and rolls the debt. But his bankers, post-recession, are new school. Their loan covenants are tight. He has milestone deadlines on all 4 projects, 90-day windows. I look at the timeline, dominoes. Exactly, Mateo, Noah says. He misses 1 deadline, he gets a penalty, he misses a second, the interest rate jumps 2%, he misses a third, the bank has the right to call the note or sell the debt. I look at the photos, the whiskey, the laughter, the look on the manager's face, the press release that followed 20 minutes later, the one Tess found, the one that called my wife unprofessional. The one that mentioned a previous disciplinary action that never, ever happened. All right, I say. I walk to the board, I look at Brandon's smug face, and I look at the picture of Elena, back turned, walking away, dripping. I feel the old heat rise, the urge to send Luca and two of the boys to have a conversation with Brandon, the urge to break something, to make someone feel the same sharp, cold humiliation. I push it down. That's blunt. It's stupid. It's what they do. No one, I say, my voice flat, is to touch them. No one gets hurt. We don't go near them. Luca looks at me, his eyebrow raised. We just, I say, take away their air. I tap the timeline. The milestone deadlines, what are they? Tess answers. The West Loop complex needs its foundational slab poured. It's scheduled for tonight. 300 trucks, continuous pour, starting at midnight. The stadium overpass needs hot mix asphalt for the access roads. Also a night job. Both are dependent on Santoro Asphalt and Santoro Transport. Good, Sophia. Sophia hangs up her call. The city contracts are clear. Santoro has priority clauses for emergency public works and infrastructure repair. Entirely legal. Make the call, I say. Find an emergency. A water main break near the Gold Coast. A sinkhole. Something that requires our immediate attention. Reroute all asphalt tankers to that public good project, starting this afternoon. Lucas smiles, a small, tight thing. The Caldwell site managers will panic. Let them, I say. They'll call our dispatch, and dispatch will tell them they are, unfortunately, second in line, a 48-hour delay, at least. What about the transport union, Luca asks. The West Loop pour. They can't move that much rebar or haul that much excavated dirt without our guys. They're working nights, I say. It's dangerous work. I'm worried about their safety. I look at Luca. He gets it. The Local 309, Nahai says, is due for a supplementary safety check, brakes, tires, haulage weight calibration. It's all in the contract. A sudden, mandatory safety stand-down, effective tonight. No trucks roll until every single vehicle is inspected, top to bottom, for the good of the men, of course. Exactly, I say, it's all legal. It's all by the book. It's just paperwork and safety. By 10 a.m., the first pieces are moving. The city of Chicago discovers a critical sewer line issue that, miraculously, requires the entire output of our asphalt plant for the next 2 days. By noon, the transport union president, a man whose kids' college funds I personally oversee, releases a memo about grave safety concerns regarding night haulage vehicles, effective immediately. The first frantic calls from the Caldwell work sites hit our dispatch logs by 2 p.m. I watch the transcripts roll in. Confusion, anger, threats of lawsuits. Our dispatchers, trained by Sophia, are monuments of polite regret. We understand your frustration, sir, but public safety must come first. Charles Caldwell must be climbing the walls. His entire night shift is standing still. A foundational pour, once delayed, is a logistical nightmare. It's not just a delay of 48 hours. It's rescheduling 300 drivers. It's the concrete curing wrong. It's the inspectors. It's thousands of dollars bleeding out every single hour. He's feeling the squeeze. He just doesn't know who is squeezing. He thinks it's bad luck. While the city's foundations grind to a halt, I turn my attention to the personal. Tess pulls up a new screen. This is the problem. Mateo, the dark media campaign. It started about an hour ago. That fake disciplinary story. I see it. Anonymous blogs, bots on social media, comment sections. They're seeding the lie. I heard she's always rude. That waitress has a history. Caldwell was provoked. They are trying to justify it. The coldness I felt earlier returns, but this is different. This is ice. Lock her down, nay, I say. Tess's fingers fly. Already on it. Her public social media profiles. They no longer exist, wiped. Her phone number. By the time she wakes up, it'll be ported to a new, private, encrypted line. This old number will route to a dead box. The harassment will hit a brick wall. Good. And the blog posts. We can't erase them, Tess says, but we can bury them. I'm setting up an anonymous victim advocacy group, seeding it with resources for service industry workers. We'll start a counter-narrative, not about Elena, about dignity. We'll drown their noise in something positive. I nod. Protect her, at all costs. And him, Luca asked, pointing at the screen. Tess has Brandon Caldwell's live stream feed up. He's not apologizing. He's not even quiet. He's at some rooftop bar, already drinking, his phone out, bragging about the gala. He's an idiot, Tess says, a rare note of disgust in her voice. He's checking in. He's tagging his friends. He's live mapping his entire life for me. Keep mapping, I say. Follow the liability. We'll need a visual aid for his father. Soon. I stand up and look out the window at my fleet of silent trucks. They look peaceful, but I know they are a weapon. A weapon Charles Caldwell doesn't even know is aimed at him. He thinks his problem is asphalt. He thinks his problem is unions. He has no idea. His problem is that his son picked the wrong waitress, in the wrong hotel, in a city whose foundations belong to her husband. The first 48 hours are about logistics. The asphalt hardens in the wrong places. The transport union's safety review finds a predictable list of critical infractions on 20% of the fleet, grounding them. Charles Caldwell is bleeding money into the Chicago soil, paying for crews who are standing around drinking coffee. He's angry. He's making calls, yelling at my dispatchers, threatening breach of contract. But he's yelling at the armor, not the man inside it. My armor is paperwork. It's bylaws. It's public safety ordinances. He can punch it all day, and all he'll do is break his own knuckles. But a supply squeeze is temporary. It's a message. The real power, the permanent kind, isn't in stopping a truck. It's in owning the note. On day 3, I'm back in the war room. The smell of coffee is gone, replaced by the sterile hum of servers. Noah Green has the floor. He isn't just a numbers guy. He's a structural engineer for money. He finds the load-bearing walls and the hairline fractures. Here's the architecture of their debt. Mateo, he says, tapping the main screen. The diagram looks like a nightmare. 4 projects, 6 different lenders, all tied in knots. Charles is over-leveraged, but he's smart, Noah explains, his voice crisp. He used short-term construction loans, all with milestone clauses, 90-day windows. He hits his mark like the West Loop Foundation pour, and the next tranche of money unlocks. He missed that mark, I say. He did. That's milestone 1, Noah says. The contract gives him a grace period, but now he's on the clock. If he misses a second milestone, say, the steel framework inspection on the same project, the penalty kicks in. That's an automatic 2-point jump on his interest rate, 2%, across the entire $90 million loan. I do the math. It's crippling. And milestone 3. That's the kill shot, Noah says, zooming in on the fine print. 3 missed milestones, and the bank has the right to declare him in default. They can sell the debt to anyone, immediately, to recover their position. They're nervous. I state, it's not a question. They're terrified, Noah confirms. This supply chain bad luck is all over the financial news. Caldwell's risk profile just went from aggressive to toxic. They don't want to be left holding this bag. Good. I turn to my terminal. Activate the funds. On paper, Harbor Point Capital, the North River Group, and the Silver Foundation are 3 separate, spotless, offshore investment entities. They specialize in acquiring distressed infrastructure assets. They are registered in 3 different countries. They are clean, anonymous, and have no legal connection to Santoro Infrastructure or to me. They are my financial ghosts. Noah, you have the green light. Start making quiet inquiries. I want those banks to know there's an anonymous buyer willing to take that toxic debt off their hands. For a discount, of course, for their trouble. On it, he says. They'll be relieved they have an exit. Now for the second front, while Noah attacks the bank accounts, Sophia attacks the calendar. She walks in, shrugging off her coat. She just came from City Hall, a place where she used to work and still holds more keys than the mayor. How is the planning commission, Sophia? I ask. Productive, she says, accepting a coffee from Luca. You know, it's a funny thing. The city just approved a new 24-hour bus route. Starts next week. It goes right past the Caldwell Lakeview Tower project. I smile. Does it now? It does. And according to City Ordinance 3-5B, she recites, any new public transit line automatically triggers a revised traffic impact and public access study for all adjacent construction. Meaning, she says, all permits for that site are frozen. Pending the new study, they can't move a crane, they can't accept a delivery, they can't even put up scaffolding until the city signs off on the new traffic plan. And how long does a study like that take? Luca asks, already grinning. Well, Sophia says, these things are very thorough. You've got environmental impact, noise abatement, pedestrian flow. It could take 30 days. It could take 60. My old colleague is very, very thorough. So Caldwell's West Loop project is choked by a lack of asphalt, and now his Lakeview Tower is frozen by a ghost bus route. He's bleeding from 2 arteries. Now, we attack the third front, his name. I turn to Tess. She's been monitoring the dark media campaign against Elena, the bots, the paid-for comments. They're still pushing the argumentative employee narrative, Tess reports, her voice clipped with anger. It's sloppy, but it's clouding the issue. So, I say, we clarify, Edmond, but not with anger, not with accusations. We use the truth. My kindness network is active, Tess says. I reached out to my contacts, bartenders, valets, concierges, servers, housekeeping, the people who, like Elena, are invisible until something goes wrong. I didn't give them Elena's name. I just asked, do you know a server at the Fox Italian Mexican Girl? Always calm, always smiling. The story started coming in anonymously. Tess pulls up a new screen. It's an audio file, voice modulated, a valet from a downtown garage. Yeah, I know her. My car broke down last winter. She saw me waiting for the bus, in the sleet. She gave me her taxi, just gave it to me. Said, get home safe. Who does that? Another one, a bartender from a rival hotel. She's the standard. We all know her. She once covered a table for a junior server who was having a panic attack, took the blame for the messed up order, and tipped the kid out of her own pocket. One by one, Tess weaves these stories. She isn't attacking Caldwell. She isn't even mentioning the incident. She's building a portrait of the woman they tried to erase. She's framing this not as an assault, but as an offense against labor dignity. She's reminding the city that the service staff are human. The next morning, it hits. An independent urban affairs blog, one that all the politicians and developers read, runs a long-form investigative piece. The title is, Who Runs Chicago's Foundations? It's beautiful. It's not about me. My name is nowhere in it. It's about the real foundations. It's a love letter to the night shift asphalt layers, the concrete truck drivers, the crane operators, the server who remembers your name. It praises the unseen ecosystem that keeps the city alive. And then, in the final third, it pivots. It asks what happens when that ecosystem is treated with contempt. It doesn't name Brandon. It just asks, what is the culture of a company like Caldwell Urban Development that builds its towers on the backs of these workers and yet holds them in such open disdain? The effect is immediate. Caldwell PR, already reeling from the supply chain disaster, issues a frantic denial. They call the blog irresponsible and a mouthpiece for disgruntled unionists. They double down, blaming logistical partners for the delays. It's a mistake. They sound defensive. They sound guilty. The stock for Caldwell Materials, a publicly traded ancillary company Charles uses for rebar sourcing, dips 3 points. It's not a crash, but it's a shudder. It's a sign of low confidence. And in the financial world, low confidence is blood in the water. The banks start calling Charles Caldwell, not his lawyers, him. They send official letters. I know, because Sophia has a friend in the mailroom of one of them. The letters are full of phrases like grave concern and milestone integrity and immediate clarification. The squeeze is working. Charles is being choked by bad luck, red tape, and his own PR. Tess decides it's time to turn up the heat on the liability. "He's still at it," she says, showing me a new video feed. It's not from Brandon's live stream. This is from a security camera in a hotel lobby, timestamped this morning. He's a creature of habit and arrogance. The clip is short. Brandon, looking hungover, is yelling at a hotel security guard, a man twice his age. He's jabbing his finger in the man's chest, complaining about how long his car is taking. He uses language that makes my jaw tighten. He knocks the man's hat off, just flicks it off, for fun. The public was angry about the whiskey, but they are tired of Brandon. The clip, leaked anonymously to 2 high-traffic gossip sites, goes viral. The narrative is no longer rich kid misbehaves. It's this family is a problem. The final domino falls at 4 p.m. on Friday. Noah Green walks into my office. He isn't smiling, but his eyes are bright. "They bit," he says. "The 2 main lenders for the West Loop project, they're panicking. They see the missed milestones, the bad press, the union strike. They think the whole thing is going under. They called their brokers. They want to offload the debt. Quietly. They don't want a public auction. They just want out." "And our ghosts?" "Harbor Point and North River," Noah says, "were gracious enough to take that toxic asset off their hands. We just acquired 41% of the West Loop construction debt." "At what price?" Noah allows himself a small, sharp smile. "A 12% discount, say." I lean back in my chair. Charles Caldwell doesn't know it yet. He's at home, furious, trying to find a new asphalt supplier, trying to placate his bankers. He thinks he's fighting a war on 4 fronts. He doesn't realize he's already lost. He doesn't realize that Matteo Santoro, the husband of the waitress he allowed his son to humiliate, now own the leash to his most expensive project. The supply chain was just a distraction. The real power was always in the fine print, and I just bought it. The panic inside Caldwell Urban Development must have been magnificent. Noah tracked the electronic fund transfers. Charles was moving money, pulling from personal accounts to try and cover the interest on payroll for his idle, multi-million-dollar projects. He was patching a dam break with duct tape. My team, listening through legal channels and a few less-than-legal ones, painted the picture for me. Charles Caldwell, in his glass tower boardroom, slamming his fist on the mahogany. Who is Harbor Point? Who is North River? Find them. And his team of $50,000 an hour lawyers staring blankly. They couldn't. The funds were ghosts, domiciled in countries that don't answer emails. Brandon, of course, was screaming, "Sue them, sue the unions, sue the asphalt company, sue everyone." I can picture the lead counsel, a man named Miller, rubbing his temples. "Brandon, if we sue, we go into discovery. That means we open our books. All of them. The subcontractor discounts, the political incentives, the expedited permits. Suing is suicide. We have to find out who this is and what they want." Charles was trapped. He was a shark in a tank he just realized was shrinking. He was choking on his own over-leveraged genius. He knew, by now, that this wasn't bad luck. The asphalt disappearing, the unions striking, the planning commission freezing his permits, and his debt being bought by ghosts. All in the same 72-hour window. He knew this was a coordinated attack. He just didn't know the face of the attacker. It was time to give him one. I took out a new phone, a clean burner. I typed in the personal cell number Tess had pulled for Charles. One text, 9 words. "Meet me, alone. The River Warehouse, 6 p.m. I attached the address, my address. He would come. He had no choice. He had to know. I didn't wait in the war room. I went down to the main floor. This wasn't a meeting for suits. This was a meeting for foundations. I stood by a massive open bay door. The air smelled of cold river water, wet concrete, and welding ozone. The space was cavernous, filled with the skeletons of the city. Stacks of rebar reached for the ceiling like steel ribs. Pallets of 40-kilogram bags of high-strength grout were stacked like bricks. On the far wall, illuminated by high sodium lamps, was a massive 3-meter-tall engineering schematic for the new Jefferson Bridge. I wasn't in a suit. I had on my work boots, jeans, and a thick flannel shirt. The uniform of the man Elena thinks I am, the infrastructure guy. When Charles Caldwell arrived, I wanted him to see the man who pours the concrete, not the man who signs the checks. At 6 p.m., sharp, a black sedan rolled onto the floor, its headlights cutting through the dusty air. It looked ridiculous, a sliver of luxury in a world of industrial grit. Charles Caldwell got out of the back. He left his driver. He was alone, as instructed. He looked smaller here. His expensive overcoat seemed thin. He looked around, his eyes wide with a mixture of fear and offense, as if he couldn't believe a place like this truly existed. "Who are you?" he demanded. His voice tried for command, but it echoed, thin and weak. "Are you with the unions? Are you the asphalt supplier, or are you Harbor Point?" "I'm all of them," I said. My voice didn't echo. It was flat, calm, the voice I used to use as an EMT. "Sir, you are in shock. I need you to focus." I gestured to a simple steel table and 2 metal folding chairs. "Sit down, Charles." He bristled, but he sat. I didn't sit. I stood over him. I dropped a thin file on the table in front of him. "What is this?" he snapped. "Your list of demands." "That," I said, "is your life, or what's left of it." He opened it. It wasn't demands. It was just facts. A timeline. Night 1, West Loop Foundation pour, missed. Day 2, Transport Union Safety Stand Down, enacted. Day 3, Lakeview Tower permit, frozen. Day 4, 41% of West Loop debt acquired by North River Group. He looked up at me, his face pale. The blood had drained away. He finally understood. It was all one hand. "Who are you?" he whispered. I leaned forward, placing my hands on the table. "I'm the husband." He stared. Nothing. Blank confusion. "I'm the husband," I said again, "of the Waitress, the one your son poured a 30-year-old whiskey on, the one you and your PR team called unprofessional and argumentative. I am Matteo Santoro." Recognition. It was slow, then total. It wasn't fear, it was disbelief. It was the look of a man who discovers the ant he stepped on is actually the pin of a grenade. He thought this was about business, about a corporate raid. "You did all this for that?" "You did all that," I corrected him, "for fun." I slid a single piece of paper across the table. "This is what happens first. These are the soft conditions. You will sign this, right now." He read it. 1, I said, ticking off the points. "You will issue an immediate, public, and personal apology. You will retract the lies your team fabricated about Elena. You will state for the record that your son, Brandon, was solely responsible for an act of unprovoked harassment. 2, Brandon is to be suspended, not on leave. Suspended indefinitely. He will have no public-facing role in your company. He will issue his own separate apology. He will disappear. 3, you will fund a mandatory third-party workplace dignity and anti-harassment training program for every single manager in your entire company, starting with the spineless one at the Gilded Fox. You will pay for it. I will choose the provider." Charles threw the paper down. "This is insane. This is extortion. I'll ruin you. You're just a concrete hauler." "I am," I said, not raising my voice. "But I'm the concrete hauler who owns 41% of your future, and you won't ruin me, because if you try, if you so much as breathe my wife's name to the press, I will call the note." He started to laugh, a dry, cracking sound. "Call it, you don't have enough. If 41% isn't control, the banks will side with me. I'm Charles Caldwell." "Are you?" I asked. I slid one more piece of paper over. "You're right. 41% isn't control. It's just a lever. This," I tapped the paper, "is the control." It was a simple calendar. It showed the next 90 days. "You have a choice. Charles, it's very simple. You choose progress or you choose spontaneous combustion." He looked confused. "Sign that paper," I said, "and tomorrow a miraculous breakthrough happens with the transport union. Their safety concerns are addressed. I will allow your trucks to roll in 72-hour blocks, just enough to pour your slab, just enough to keep your bankers from putting that knife in your throat. You'll bleed, but you'll live." "And if I don't?" he said, his voice trembling. "If you don't," I said, "the asphalt stays hard, the trucks stay parked, the permits stay frozen, and in 2 weeks, when you miss milestone number 2, and your interest rate jumps 2%, I'll be here, waiting. And I'll buy the rest of your debt from the banks that are climbing over each other to abandon you. 100% legal." He stared at the paper, at the calendar, at the schematic of the bridge on the wall. He was looking at the foundations of the city and realizing they were all mine. This is monstrous." "No," I said. "Monstrous is humiliating a woman for sport. Monstrous is lying about her to save your son's reputation. This is just infrastructure, consequences." He sat there for a full minute. I could hear the gears grinding in his head, the calculation, the ego warring with the balance sheet. The balance sheet won. He grabbed the pen and signed the paper, his signature a jagged slash of anger. "This is a 1-week truce," he spat, shoving the paper back at me. 1 week, we'll renegotiate in good faith." "Of course," I said, folding the paper. 1 week? I didn't need 1 week, I just needed his signature. He stood up, straightened his coat, and walked back to his car, a king who had just been checkmated by a pawn. I let him go. I drove for a long time after that. The adrenaline of the confrontation faded, leaving behind the quiet, cold hum of the engine. I picked Elena up after her shift. She didn't work at the Fox tonight. She'd taken a few days off. She got in the car, her face tired but clear. The harassment online had stopped, as Tess had promised. The bots were gone. The blogs were buried. She didn't know why. She just thought the storm had passed. We drove along the lake, the water black and calm, the city skyline a string of diamonds. She was quiet for a long time. Then she said, "My mother. She used to clean rooms in a hotel, not as nice as the Fox, but still. She used to tell me about the things people would leave, the messes, the way they treated her, like she was furniture. She told me to always be proud, to work hard, to be invisible, but to be proud." She looked at me, her eyes reflecting the city lights. I felt like her. That night, I felt invisible and small. I reached over, took her hand. Her skin was warm. I didn't tell her about the warehouse. I didn't tell her that Charles Caldwell had just signed his surrender on a steel table. I wouldn't burden her with that. That was my foundation to lay. I turned onto our street. "You are the least invisible person I know. Elena," I said, my voice rough. "You're the center. I will always choose the solid ground for you. Always." She squeezed my hand. She didn't know what I meant. Not really, but she felt it. And for now, that was enough. The truce lasted less than 24 hours. Charles Caldwell did what I asked. Barely. He released a statement, a masterpiece of legal weasel words. It regretted the misunderstanding and retracted the previous incorrect information regarding the Gilded Fox incident. It didn't name Elena. It didn't name his son. It was the bare minimum. In return, I allowed a small artery to open. I authorized the transport union to release just enough trucks for the West Loop Foundation, citing partial safety compliance. I gave him air. I was testing him, seeing if he understood the rules of this new foundation. He didn't. I was at home, making coffee, when Tess called my private line. Her voice was cold. He broke it. "Matteo." "The statement was weak," I said, "but it met the terms." "Not the statement," she said. "The back channel. He's smarter than I thought, or slimier. He didn't use his own PR. He hired a third-party reputation management firm. They're seeding bot farms and paying micro-influencers to post blind items all over social media." She read one aloud. "Spotted downtown hotel waitress known for clumsy spills around rich guests. Here she's trying to shake down a major developer's son. It's deniable. It's not traceable to him. But it's him. He signed your paper with one hand and kept trying to destroy her with the other. I looked at the coffee swirling in the pot. He had promised good faith. He had lied. He had taken my mercy and used it as a shield to continue his attack. He was still using Elena as the target. I hung up and walked into the war room. Luca, Noah, and Sophia were already there. They'd heard the call. He's incapable of honor. I said, it was a final judgment. The truce is void. He doesn't need a truce. He needs a lesson. Noah. Noah Green looked up from his screens. We have the 41% solid. The other banks are holding, but they're terrified. The one we really need is a regional fund, Midwest Savings and Loan. They hold the key 11% slice. They're small. They're scared. They believe this is all just catastrophic bad luck. They need one more push, I said. One more piece of bad luck. Sophia. Sophia Marino, my fixer, was looking out the window. The wind was picking up, howling off the lake. The Chicago hawk was awake. The wind, she said, a slow, predatory smile spreading across her face. It's beautiful. She pointed to the forecast, gusts up to 45 miles an hour. OSHA has very, very clear guidelines about high wind operations, especially for tower cranes. The West Loop site, I said. They have 3 cranes. And all it takes, Sophia said, is one anonymous, deeply concerned phone call from a worker about a strange sound he heard from the crane's axle during the last shift. It triggers an immediate, mandatory shutdown. All work ceases. They have to bring in a specialized inspector to check the crane shafts for microfractures. How long, I asked? 24 hours minimum, she said. 48, more likely. To get the specialist to sign off, it's a full stop. And, Matteo, this will be milestone number 3. Make the call, I said. Sophia made the call. Within an hour, the West Loop site was silent. The priority trucks I'd released were idling at a blockade, turned away due to a critical safety emergency. It hit the financial wires by noon. Caldwell project suffers 3rd major setback. Safety concerns halt work. Noah watched his terminal. Here it comes, he whispered. The Midwest Savings and Loan didn't just panic. They imploded. They saw the other big banks had already sold their debt. They saw 3 missed milestones. They knew, in their bones, that the 3 strikes clause was now active. Their 11% stake was about to be worth 0. They're dumping it, Noah said, his fingers flying. They're not even asking for a premium. They just want out. They're selling the note. Buy it, Noah. I said, all of it. Use the Silver Foundation. Done, he said. Not 5 minutes later, he leaned back, taking his glasses off. Congratulations, Matteo. Harbor Point, North River, and Silver Foundation now collectively own 52% of the Caldwell West Loop debt. You own him. You can call the note due right now. I will, I said. Get Charles on the phone. This time, they came to the warehouse, to the mezzanine office. Charles arrived, his face gray. He brought Brandon with him, a mistake. Brandon looked like he hadn't slept. His arrogance curdled into a high-strung, shaky rage. What is this? Charles demanded. I signed your paper. I did what you asked. You did, I said, my voice quiet. I sat at the steel table. Luca stood behind me, motionless. And then you hired a bot farm to call my wife a liar. You broke the truce, Charles. So the terms have changed. The soft conditions are over. I slid 2 plain white envelopes onto the table. You have 2 choices, I said. Envelope A, envelope B. Brandon scoffed. We're not playing your stupid games. Quiet, Brandon, Charles snapped, and he looked at the envelopes. What are they? Envelope A, I said, is orderly collapse. I am the man who owns Harbor Point, North River, and Silver Foundation. As of an hour ago, I control 52% of your debt. Envelope A is me calling that note due. You default. We seize the West Loop assets. We liquidate your company. Your brand, Caldwell Urban Development, ceases to exist by Friday. It's clean. You're ruined. But you're not in jail. You just vanish. Charles looked like he'd been shot. Brandon's jaw went slack. Or, I said, tapping the second envelope, you choose envelope B. Justice and reform. What reform? Charles whispered. I leaned forward. 1. You and Brandon will hold a live press conference. Today, you will apologize. By name. To Elena Russo, you will use the words harassment, abuse of power, and a culture of entitlement. You will publicly retract every lie. 2. You will establish the Chicago Service Worker Dignity Fund, a nonprofit providing legal aid and support to hospitality and service workers who are harassed. You will provide the seed capital, $40 million. Charles made a gagging sound. 3. The Lakeview Tower project. 12% of its final net profit equity will be transferred, irrevocably, to a new trust, the Worker Scholarship Fund, for the children of this city's service employees. And 4, I said, looking directly at Brandon, you disappear. No more public role, no more social media, no seat on the board. Your father can give you a desk in a basement, but you are finished in this city. That was the trigger. Brandon exploded. You think you can do this? You're a effing concrete driver. You're nobody. I'll kill you. He lunged across the table, not at his father, at me. He never made it. Luca DeLuca moved. He didn't intercept. He didn't throw a punch. He didn't grab him. He simply stepped between us. A calm, immovable object. Brandon, consumed by rage, shoved Luca in the chest. Get out of my way, you old... Luca didn't flinch. He just raised his personal cell phone, his hand perfectly steady. He didn't say a word. On the screen, a video was playing. It was grainy, from a different bar. 2 years ago, Brandon, younger, drunker, shoving a valet. Then it cut to a PDF, a legal settlement, confidential, for a 5-figure sum. Then another and another, a harassment claim from a caterer, a DUI that vanished from the records, a string of payoffs, fixes, and buried crimes. Tess's entire file, summarized in 90 seconds. Brandon froze. The color drained from his face. He was looking at his entire secret history, the armor his father's money had built for him, all on one screen. Charles, his eyes wide, looked at the phone. He looked at his son. And for the first time, I saw the arrogance in his eyes shatter. He hadn't known. Not all of it. He saw the liability. He saw the monster he had built. Sit down, Brandon, Charles said. His voice was dead. Brandon collapsed into his chair. Charles looked at me. The fight was gone, and he was a hollowed-out building. He pointed a shaking finger. Envelope B. He reached for it. You'll need lawyers to... No, I interrupted. You'll sign the term sheet, right now. Sophia, who had been silent in the corner, stepped forward and placed a thick, bound document on the table. My lawyers are very thorough. It's all there. The fund transfer, the equity grant, the new board structure, ironclad. Charles Caldwell picked up the pen. He signed. He pushed the document back. He looked at me, a man who had lost his entire world in 10 minutes. Is that all? I stood up and leaned across the table, my voice just for him. One more thing. You used her. You used her humiliation to hide your son's behavior. You used her name in your fake apology. You used her name in your whisper campaign. You never understood. She was never the target. She was the line, and you crossed it. I leaned in closer. Don't ever use Elena as a shield again. There is no envelope C. Do you understand me? He just nodded, a single, broken movement. I went home. The press conference was at 5 p.m. I was sitting on our couch when Elena came in, holding groceries. Hi, she said, long day. Something like that. I said, I picked up the remote. There's something I think you should watch. She looked at me, confused, as she sat down. What is it? I turned on the TV. It was all local channels. A podium with the Caldwell Urban Development logo. Mateo, what? Charles Caldwell walked to the microphone. He looked gray. Brandon stood behind him, his eyes vacant. Good afternoon, Charles said, his voice shaking. I am here today to make a profound and overdue apology. Elena sat up, her hand going to her mouth. To a member of the Gilded Fox Hotel staff, Miss Elena Russo. Elena stopped breathing. She looked at me. Charles continued. He detailed the incident. He used the words, "An act of unprovoked harassment marked an abuse of privilege. A subsequent campaign of misinformation, which I personally authorized, was despicable." Then Brandon stepped up. He read from a card in a monotone, apologizing directly to her. He announced his indefinite leave of absence from all public life. Charles stepped back up. He announced the $40 million Service Worker Dignity Fund. He announced the 12% equity transfer for the scholarship fund. Elena wasn't watching the TV anymore. Her eyes were locked on mine. She was seeing it all. The bad luck that had plagued the Caldwells, the late nights I was working, the infrastructure that suddenly needed my full attention. The pieces were locking into place. Tears were streaming down her face, but she wasn't sad. She was seeing. "Mateo," she whispered, as the reporters on TV began shouting questions. "You did this!" I turned off the television. The room was quiet. I took her hand. It was trembling. "He broke his promise," I said, my voice soft. "I made him keep it. I told you I would always choose the solid ground for you." The silence in our living room was louder than the shouting on the television had been. Elena's hand was still pressed to her mouth. She wasn't looking at the screen anymore. She was looking at me. It wasn't fear in her eyes. It was awe. It was the look of someone seeing a familiar landscape for the first time, realizing the quiet hill they lived on was actually a dormant volcano. You did this," she whispered again. It wasn't an accusation. It was a discovery. I picked up the remote and muted the feed of reporters screaming questions at Charles Caldwell's gray, empty face. He broke the terms," I said, my voice quiet. "He signed an agreement, and then he hired people to continue lying about you. He kept using you as a shield." She stood up and walked to the window, looking out at the Chicago skyline, the towers, the lights, the city we both served, in very different ways. "When I met you," she said, her voice small, "you told me you were in infrastructure. I thought you, I don't know, paved roads, fixed things." "I do," I said, walking to stand behind her. I didn't touch her. I gave her the space. "That's exactly what I do. Sometimes the foundation is cracked. Sometimes the support beam is rotten. And sometimes the entire structure is built on a lie, and it has to be taken down to the studs and rebuilt." She turned, her eyes tracing my face, searching. "That press conference, the $40 million, the 12% Mateo, That," I said, "is justice and reform. That is the price of what they did. That's the cost of repair." She was quiet for a long time. Then she leaned forward and rested her forehead against my chest. I felt the tension go out of her. I wrapped my arms around her. "I don't know that man," she whispered, her voice muffled against my shirt. "The one who can do that." "Yes, you do," I said, holding her tight. "You're the only one who does. He's just the man who fixes the faucet. He's just the man who loves his wife." She finally let go. A deep, shuddering breath. She had been holding it, I realized, ever since that whiskey hit her skin. The next morning, the real work began, the cleanup. The city woke up to the news, Caldwell's shocking apology, and billionaire pledges $40 million to service workers. The press, of course, was eating it up. They painted Charles as a repentant corporate citizen, a man horrified by his son's actions, taking a bold step toward reform. I let them. The narrative was useful. It made the change permanent. My first call was to Luca. "Open it up!" "All of it." "Conditionally," I said. "The supply chain reopens, but the new terms are non-negotiable. The respect memorandum is part of the contract now. Full transparency on overtime pay. 2 safety inspectors are inspectors on every Caldwell site. Full time. They aren't just looking for cracked rebar anymore. They're looking for cracked managers. Any report of worker harassment, any complaint, and the concrete stops immediately." "He'll sign it," Luca said. "He already did," I replied. "It was in envelope B." The union signed the new memorandum of respect with Caldwell Urban Development. It was the first of its kind in the city. My next meeting was with Noah and Sophia. The $40 million fund needed to be more than a press release. It has to be real, I said. Bulletproof. I don't want his money. I want his money to work. Noah structured it. The Chicago Service Worker Dignity Fund. We placed the retired judge, the one who made the first call to me, on the board of directors. We added the head of the city's largest hospitality union and a dean from the university law school. Its mandate was simple. First, legal aid. Any hotel worker, any valet, any server in the city who faced harassment could get a lawyer, fully paid for, to fight back. No more settlements. No more non-disclosure agreements. Second, scholarships. The 12% equity from the Lakeview Tower would feed it. It was for the children of the workers. The ones like Elena, the ones like her mother. The press called it a new model of corporate responsibility. I just called it consequences. Tess, meanwhile, monitored the fallout. Brandon Caldwell, as promised, vanished. His social media was deleted. His name was scrubbed from the company masthead. Tess, through her sources, found him 3 weeks later. He'd been given a desk in a windowless office in a suburban annex, his job reviewing municipal water main contracts. His new business card, if he'd been allowed one, would have been blank. He was a ghost. The city moved on, but the real test was Elena. A week after the press conference, she was standing in our bedroom, holding her gilded fox uniform. It was clean, pressed. "What are you doing?" I asked. "I'm going to work," she said. Her voice was steady. My first instinct was to say no, to tell her she never had to work another day in her life, that I would buy the hotel and turn it into a parking lot if she wanted. But I looked at her. I saw the set of her jaw. This wasn't about money. It wasn't about the job. It was about walking back into the place where she was made to feel small and standing tall. It was about her foundation. "Okay," I said, "I'll drive you." I sat in the car across the street, in the shadow of an alley. I watched her walk up the steps, her back straight. She pushed through the revolving door. I waited. I was prepared for anything, for one of the old managers to say something, for a guest to make a remark. I had Luca and 2 of his men inside, dressed as guests, just watching. Elena told me what happened later. She walked into the staff locker room. The new hotel manager, Mr. Davies, the one who had placated Brandon, had been fired, was waiting for her. He was a new man, brought in from another chain. He didn't make a speech. He just looked her in the eyes and said, "Miss Russo, on behalf of the Gilded Fox, on behalf of our entire brand, I am profoundly sorry for what you endured. It was a failure on our part, and it will never happen again. Your station is ready, if you'd like it." Maria, the server who had taken her tray, was there. She just walked up and hugged Elena, then the other servers, the busboys, the bartenders. One by one, they came up. They didn't say much. They just embraced her. They knew. She had stood up for them even without meaning to. She worked her shift. She said it was strange. The guests, the ones who had seen the press conference, they made eye contact. They said please. They said thank you. One wealthy woman, a regular, stopped Elena, touched her arm, and said, "I'm so glad you're back." She was no longer invisible. When she got back in the car at 2 a.m., she was exhausted, but she was smiling, a real smile. "How was it?" I asked. "It was just a shift," she said. She knew I had been watching. She knew I had men inside. She didn't say anything about it. She just leaned over and kissed me. "Let's go home. I hear the faucet in the guest bathroom is dripping." "I'll take a look at it," I said. And I did. I spent an hour the next morning, my tools spread out on a towel, replacing a $5 washer. She brought me coffee. She watched me work. My hands, the same hands that had signed the orders to dismantle Charles Caldwell's empire, now carefully tightening a compression nut. She put her hand on my shoulder. "That's the man I married." "He's the only one here," I said. That weekend, we walked by the river. The wind was still cold, but the sun was out. The city felt clean. We stood by the railing, looking at the water. "For so long," she said, I thought the goal was just to get through it, to be invisible, to not make waves. My mother taught me that. Be quiet, be good, and they won't hurt you. She shook her head. They hurt you anyway. She turned to me, her eyes clear. All this time with the online harassment, with the manager, with Brandon, I felt so completely unseen. I took her hands. They were calloused from the trays, but they were the strongest hands I knew. I see you, I said. My voice was rough. Elena, I have never seen anyone but you. From the first day you served me coffee, when I was just a guy with a broken-down truck, when you had no idea who I was, you were the only thing in this whole city that wasn't infrastructure. You were the only thing that was real. I see you, too, Mateo, she whispered. All of you, the man who fixes the faucets, and the man who protects his family. I see you. The city settled. The news cycle moved on. But something had changed. Caldwell Urban Development actually began to reform. The anonymous hotline they set up, the one Sophia's people monitored, started getting calls, real ones, and they were being acted on. Managers were being retrained. Respect was now, literally, part of their key performance indicators, tied to their bonuses. A precedent had been set. The story of the waitress and the billionaire's son became a whisper, a legend in the service corridors of the city, a reminder that even the deepest foundation can crack if you put pressure on the right spot. 6 months, that's how long it takes for a new foundation to settle, for the concrete to cure to its full strength. That's how long it took for the city to absorb the shock of the Caldwell reform. The Lakeview Tower, the project Sophia had frozen with a bus route, was finally opening. It was summer. The sun baked the pavement and the air was thick, but the ceremony was full of suits. I wasn't on the guest list. I was in a car parked 2 blocks away, Luca at the wheel, watching a live feed from a local news camera. Charles Caldwell stepped up to the podium. He was thinner. His voice, once a commanding boom, was now a measured monotone. He gave a speech about partnership, about community, about corporate responsibility. It was dry. It was boring. And it was, for the first time in his life, completely true. He and the mayor cut a blue ribbon. They walked to the entrance and unveiled the plaque. Luca squinted. What's it say, boss? It says, I read from the close-up on our feed, dedicated to the hands that build the foundations of this city. My name was not on it. Santoro was not on it. Harbor Point and North River were not on it. It was perfect. The foundation doesn't need a name. It just needs to be solid. The real victory, however, wasn't happening in front of the cameras. It happened on a Tuesday, in our kitchen. I was home when Elena came in from her class. She hadn't worked at the Gilded Fox in months. She'd enrolled in a few community college courses. Testing the waters, she was holding a thick, cream-colored envelope. The logo in the corner was one I knew well. Noah and Tess had designed it. The Worker Scholarship Fund, the one funded by 12% of the profits from the very tower they were opening today. Mateo, she said, her voice unsteady. Open it, I said, leaning against the counter. Her hands shook slightly. She had debated for weeks whether to apply. She felt it was conflicted. I told her it wasn't a gift, it was restitution. It was hers, earned by blood and whiskey. She pulled out the letter. Her eyes scanned it, once, twice. A tear escaped, then another. She looked up at me, her face a blazing sunrise of disbelief and joy. I got it, she whispered. Full scholarship, the entire 2-year program. Hospitality management. I crossed the kitchen and pulled her into my arms. I felt her heart hammering against my chest. This was the point. Not the revenge, not the collapse of an enemy. The rebuilding of what was broken. You're going to be amazing, I said, my voice rough. I'm going to open it, she said, pulling back, her eyes fierce. My cafe, a small one, I even have the name. The Kind Cup, a place where the coffee is good, but the people are treated better. No one will ever be invisible there. She was building her own foundation, with better materials. My world settled, too. Charles Caldwell and I still met, once a month. He came to the warehouse. He didn't bring lawyers. He just brought blueprints and timelines. He sat at the same steel table where he had signed envelope B. "Mateo," he'd say, all the bluster gone. "We're ready for the South Shore pour. Phase 2. "Safety certs," I'd ask. "Triple-checked, signed by your inspector, and the new overtime pay structure is already approved by the union." "Good," I'd say, and I'd sign the release for the concrete. He didn't argue. He didn't haggle on safety. He didn't try to cut corners on a single dignity clause. He had learned, the hard way, that the most expensive thing in the world is a weak foundation. He was ruined as a tyrant, but he was, oddly, a much better builder. I kept one loose end. Brandon, I had Tess keep a passive file on him. I didn't want any more surprises. For 5 months, the report was the same. He went to his basement office. He reviewed water main contracts. He went home. But last week, Tess's report changed. "He's moving at night," she said, sliding a grainy, long-lens photo onto my desk. It was Brandon, and he was in a hoodie and jeans, his hair a mess, carrying a box. He was walking into the back door of a community soup kitchen on the west side. His father made him volunteer, Tess explained. Part of his rehabilitation. Started 3 months ago. The mandatory part ended last month. But he kept going. I finished, looking at the picture. "He kept going," she confirmed. "He works the dish pit, 3 nights a week. He doesn't talk to anyone, he just scrubs pots." She played a small, muffled audio file from a bug one of her assets had planted. It was just the clang of steel, the rush of water, then a woman's voice. "That's the last of it. Brandon, good work tonight. See you Thursday." There was a pause, and then Brandon's voice. So quiet, I almost missed it. "Thanks, yeah, see you Thursday." It was, I realized, probably the first time in his life he had heard a genuine thank you that wasn't tied to a check or a threat. I looked at the file, at the broken, arrogant boy washing dishes in a basement. "Close the file, Tess," I said. "He's not a liability anymore. He's just a man." Not all the ripples were quiet. One day, Luca tossed the Chicago Reader on my desk, the arts section. There was a full-page review, a new photography exhibit, at a small, respected gallery. "The Hands That Hold the City." The photographer was Marco Reyes. I remembered his face, the young prep cook in the gilded Fox service corridor, his phone held low, his eyes wide with shock, the kid who had filmed the whole thing. He'd never leaked it. He'd sent the file to one number, a dead drop I controlled, given to him by the old judge. He had trusted the foundation to do its job. I went to the gallery, after hours, alone. The pictures were honest. They were beautiful. There was a close-up of a server's hand, the knuckles red, balancing a heavy silver tray, the tattooed forearm of a rebar worker, straining, the laughing face of a woman on a sanitation truck, her shift ending at dawn. He hadn't photographed the glass towers. He'd photographed the people who kept them from falling. I bought the main piece, the server's hand. I had it hung, anonymously, in the main hall of the transport union. Tonight, there are no meetings, no trucks, no reports. I get home, and I do the ritual. The work phone, the one that controls Santoro infrastructure, goes into a drawer. The burner phone, the one that controls Harbor Point, goes into the safe. I power them both down. I walk into the kitchen. The smell of garlic and tomatoes fills the air. Elena is there, not in a uniform, not in her college sweatshirt, but in a simple dress, her hair pinned up. An apron is tied around her waist. We eat at our small kitchen table. No TV, no news, just the sound of forks on plates and the low hum of the city. She raises her glass of wine. "To the kind cup," she says, her eyes sparkling. I raise mine, to the founder. We sit in the comfortable silence of people who have nothing left to hide. "You know," she says, setting her glass down, "people are different. At the school, in the shops, that fund, your justice and reform, it changed the weather. Mateo, I think you made them afraid to be cruel." I reach across the table and take her hand. Her skin is warm. "Fear is a bad foundation, Elena," I say. "It doesn't last. It rots. You can't build anything real on it." I look at her, The woman who started all this by simply existing, by simply being decent. This city, I say, the good parts of it doesn't stand on what it fears, it stands on what's right. It stands on people like you, who get up every day and do the work, who hold the line with dignity. I just leveled the ground so you could be seen. After dinner, as I'm washing the dishes, she pulls a box from the top of the closet. From it, she takes a piece of linen, folded, yellowed with age. She unfolds it. It's a tablecloth, hand-embroidered, tiny, perfect flowers along the border. My mother's, she whispers, running her hand over the stitches. The one she kept in plastic, the one she saved for a special occasion that never came. She was so afraid it would get stained. She looks at me, and her eyes are clear. She doesn't fold it back up. She takes it and drapes it over our small, wooden kitchen table. It hangs there, bright and proud, a symbol of a dignity that was never, ever invisible. I dry my hands and put my arm around her waist. The kitchen window is open. The Chicago wind, the old, restless hawk, blows in off the lake. It's not a howl tonight, it's just a breeze. It stirs the edge of the tablecloth. Outside, the glass towers glitter against the black sky. Silent and massive, they look permanent. They look like they own the world. But we know the truth. We know what's holding them up.